Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we are here with another board game review about Marvel Champions, and I'm going to tell you that why you should or should not play Marvel Champions, the card game. Marvel Champions is an LCG, which stands for a living card game, which is a model that Fantasy Flight has introduced, where they release a core box, which is what I will be reviewing today. Plus, what you can buy is different expansion packs, which are always going to have the same kind of cards, which you can mix in the main box and then always keep expanding your game. And that's why it's kind of stated as a living card game, that it will go on forever and ever. At the time of this review, this game already has, well, hundreds of booster packs. I don't know, but so many booster packs are already released, so many heroes. Plus there are even campaign bigger box expansions as well, which adds new kind of villains as well. So but my review is going to be focused on the main core box and just the core box itself, because of course you can expand the game, but if you buy this, is it going to be worth it or not? And that's really going to be the question. Plus, later on, I am going to do a little bit comparison with Arkham Horror, the card game, because many people compare, because this game comes from the same company, Fantasy Flight, and it is also a living card game. And many people say that actually the mechanisms are same, which in my opinion is not really true, and that's why I'll be giving a little bit comparison of this, as well as the second comparison this game always gets is with Marvel Legendary. And again, not the same game. That's why I'll be telling you a little bit about not those games, but at least how this one compares to them and which one might be better for you. So let's first go on with the basics of the gameplay. I'm not going to explain everything. I'm of course not going to tell how to set up the game, because setting up this game is going to come with a lot of cards, and you will have to set them up for each of the scenario. And I will touch that in the pros and cons, or in my opinion of the game itself, to which I want to reach earlier. That's why I will directly jump to the gameplay, because gameplay wise this game is very straightforward, very simple. So let's jump directly into it so that I can spend more time in explaining my opinion about the game. Now, how the game is going to be played is that this is a fully co-op game. You can play it with 2 to 4 players, or 1 to 4 players. So you can play it solo, but even if you're playing with 2 players or 4 players, the game essentially works in the same way. The difficulty level is of course going to scale up as you have the more number of players, and that's given on the enemy card, that their health, and accordingly how much damage or threat they are going to have is going to increase based upon the number of players. But essentially the gameplay is going to remain the same. Each player is going to get one of their superheroes coming from the Marvel universe. So for example, I'm playing She-Hulk. Some of the basic stats will always be available on top of the card. So for example, She-Hulk has one Thaw. Thaw is basically the main way of how you remove threat from the game. The enemy is trying to complete any of the mission, and that's what these scheme cards are for. You'll be reading what is the enemy trying to do, and you need to stop it. And that's what the scheme is. If the enemy is able to complete his scheme, generate enough threat which is equivalent to his goal, then you lose. You need to keep that in check. So each turn, one of the things I can do is remove one threat from the main scheme of the villain. The other thing I can do is, of course, attack the bad guy. So it's 3 attack. She-Hulk is not really good at removing the threat, but she really can punch. So that's what the 3 attack is for. And using the attack, I can, well, punch the bad guy. If I punch the bad guy, that's the way I win the game. Players need to reduce the health of the enemy. The enemy is going to have 2 stages of attacks. Once you have reduced the health of the enemy 2 times, then the enemy is out of the game, and that's how you win the mission. The last stat is going to be defense, and whenever the enemy attacks, it's up to you. If you have not used either the thaw or the attack, then one of the things that you can do is defend yourself. So if you are in a bad position, your health is going to be zero, because if your health drops to zero or all the players drop to zero, then that's the other way the enemy wins, because now he can infinitely increase the threat and nobody is there to stop him. So if you want to defend and you have no other thing, you can always try to not do any of the other things and defend. So these are the three basic things, but each of the cards are always going to have some special actions, abilities mentioned on them as well, which you can activate as well. Some might be situational and some might be, well, forever active. So that's the basic anatomy of the your main hero card. How you're going to play is that within your each of the hero, there are going to be different hand limits that are shown. So for example, the hand limit for the She-Hulk mode is shown as 4, which means that from my hero deck, which is the blue deck, I can pick up 4 cards, and these are what's going to be available to me for playing this turn. To play any of the cards, I will have to, these cards are going to have one additional thing other than the same kind of attack thaw things. They are also going to have a cost mentioned on the top. So to play them, you have to pay a cost of the card. So for example, if I want to play this Hellcat card, this is an ally which is going to support me, and if I want to make this active, I have to pay 3 resources. How does the resources work? The resources are also the cards in your hand, and that's where the game balance is going to come. Which card do you want to discard as a resource, and which card do you want to use as, well, your main action card? So some cards which have 0 cost might be events which you can play on a particular situation and thus have no cost to them. For example, let's say if I want to play this ground stomp, so it's a hero action which is going to deal 1 damage to each of the enemy. So if I do a ground stomp, it might not be ideal because right now the only enemy here is Rhino and nobody else which I am playing against. So if I want to play this, I have to pay 2 cost. At the bottom of each of these cards is going to be shown different kind of resources. The red are aggression resources or punch. Blue are mental, green are wild, yellow are energy resources. So different resource symbols can be there. So as long as you discard the resources, if I think I'm not going to be able to play these 2 cards and I discard these 2, then I will be able to play this card, and whatever this card says, I can take that action. So that means I can reduce the health of the enemy by 1, and that was one of the things I did. Maybe not the ideal card to play in this situation, but that's generally my objective, was to show you how these cards work. So these are event cards. Once you have played an event card, it goes away. The other type of cards are going to be ally cards, which get permanently added in front of you. So, or upgrade cards are also upgrades that get upgrade your main character. So if you play an ally or upgrade, they get added in front of you as long as you have discarded that many resources. They are going to have their own personal health, how much damage they can take, how much attack they have, and each of the turn, just like your main character, you can always tap or exhaust your hero to do this much damage. As I said, for example, if I want to do this damage to the enemy, I'll reduce their counter on their health tracker, as well as I can do damage using Hellcat as well. And that's how the general turn are going to be done. Then there can be some upgrade cards. Let me see if I get, yeah, for example, this is an upgrade card called the Superpower, which always gives my attack +2. So it increases my power permanently. If I am able to get this enabled, then my basic attack increases from 3 to 3 + 2, 5 attack. So upgrade cards give you permanent boost as well. So my aim is always going to be that I can get these kind of upgrades, have allies, play events at certain times because they are very situational. Find the right time. when to discard, and those are the decisions which are meaty decisions, because you might have a hand of cards. Ooh, I really like all these cards, so which one should I discard right now to play something, because I have to do something. I cannot just sit idly. Another aspect of this game is going to be for the heroes, is that you can at any time switch to your alter ego mode, and that's the actually the main mode in which you start. So from She-Hulk, she can change to, you will flip the main card to Jennifer Walters. Now Jennifer Walters is a lawyer, and the abilities change, your hand limits change, and instead of doing fight, you will go into recovery mode. If your health is dropping, which is going to happen, then it might be better that you have to come out of the fight, recover, go to your normal life, recover from your damages, and then be fresh to join the fight another day. And that's the most unique part of this game, the alter egos themselves. And maybe that's the only unique part of this game, because rest of the things, well, we have seen in many other card battling games. But here, when you go into alter ego mode, new abilities become available, and many times when you swap from one mode to another, different things can happen. So, for example, whenever I change from Jennifer Walters to She-Hulk, she has an ability that after you change to this form, deal 2 damage to enemy. So, just by becoming Hulk, you give damage to enemy without even doing anything else. So again, each hero is going to have different kind of alter ego modes. Your hand limits are going to change. So for example, Iron Man is going to have a limitation of that how many upgrades you have enabled for Iron Man suit. Each hero plays differently. So Iron Man doesn't really work without his suit. If you have less upgrades, that's how many cards you pick up. If you have one upgrade only, you pick up one card. But if you have 5 upgrades, you pick up 5 cards. So each hero varies a lot. And that's the most unique things, these heroes and their abilities. And many of them, not all, but majority of them make really thematic sense. For example, the Black Panther cards are going to be similar to, well, similar to Iron Man, that they rely too much on the Wakanda suit, armors, things like that. You can get these kind of different upgrades enabled, and once you have these upgrades enabled, you can play the Wakanda Forever card, and all of them get triggered and have different kind of abilities. Damage, he goes here, damage, then goes there, damage, transfers damage from himself to some other one, reduces the threat. So he does a lot of things by just playing Wakanda Forever card, but as long as you have done those upgrades. So each hero is going to have these unique abilities, and that's how you're going to be doing damage. Then there are going to be, of course, slowly, when you are not attacking, well, even when you are attacking the person, or especially when you are in alter ego mode, then threats are going to be generated at the end of the round. Based on number of players, there are going to be threats at the end of each round. Threats are going to pile up, and it's going to show on the scheme that how many threats it is going to take before you lose the game, and you want to stop it. When you are in alter ego mode, then the number of threats generated are more. The enemy card is going to tell how many additional threats it will generate. Why it's generating? Because there is no hero. The hero is gone, sitting at home doing his job. So nobody is stopping him. So he's generating or completing his scheme. Whatever his objective is, he's completing those. And that takes me into the villain phase. What are you going to do during the villain phase? During the villain phase, the first thing that's going to happen is, of course, there is going to be threat generated. Additional threat if the hero is in alter ego mode. But if the hero is in hero mode, then it's going to attack the hero. How those attacks or threats also work is that other than the base value, there is going to be some additional value going to come to damage. And that's where slight luck comes into play as well, that you cannot just calculate, oh, he's going to do me 2 damage, so as long as I defend, I'll be protected. No, because what you are also going to do is flip a card, and the bottom of the card there are going to be few star symbols, well, 3-pointed star symbols, and based on the number of stars you will ignore everything else on the card and just look at those stars. So these can act as multi-use cards, just like hero cards have different resource symbols as well as cost as well as abilities, so they are multi-use card. Similar for villain, they are multi-use as well, so at the bottom symbols are going to tell the additional amount of damage they did this turn because they had a very successful attack, and that's how much damage you're going to do. If it was in alter ego mode, those number of stars are going to tell how much additional threat they generated. So there is always going to be some luck element to this as well. So these values which are printed on the card are just the bare minimum, and it will always go above based on what card you pull out, and then that card goes to discard. But that's not all. Then you're going to pull another card, and whatever is now the text of this card, that's going to become active as well. So for example, Stampede, the Rhino is going to do Stampede. When revealed, Rhino attacks you. If the character is damaged by this attack, the character is stunned. So not only the Rhino is attacking me again, but I am also getting one of these status cards that I am getting stunned, which is going to let me waste one of my attacks. So the next time I attack, actually my attack, because I was stunned, goes to waste, but this status effect will get removed. And there are different status effects: confused, tough, and stunned, which can happen to players as these cards reveal out. Sometimes minion cards can come. For example, Sandman, he's a minion. This will get added in front of me, and this Sandman is going to, just like my allies always become available to me, well, they have certain health, so after a certain amount of attacks they will die or go to my discard pile. Same goes for minions as well, that they will get added. They have certain health, but if I don't deal with this threat or minion, then they are going to keep attacking me. And if I'm not again taking the attack, they will help Rhino complete their scheme, or the bad guy, whoever you are playing, is going to help complete the scheme. And that's how the game is going to work. The villain will keep increasing the scheme, keep attacking me, sometimes may heal based on what comes up in the card. It will keep adding minions, and I will try to keep them in control. I'll have to see at what time I need to focus on threat. Should I attack the minions and waste my attack, or should I focus on attacking the main bad guy, because that's how I win the game. I don't win by attacking minions, but maybe if I don't kill the minion, he's going to kill me. And those are the balances that you're going to do. And that's how you play Marvel Champions. So it's a simple game in theory. How you set it up is difficult. There can be some text, some keywords, which can make it complex, but overall, it's still a very simple game. I have explained to you how a single hero works. When you are playing with multiple characters, there is some cooperation included. So the other players can on their turn ask you to trigger any action if you can. But in my personal opinion, that really isn't very useful. I've seen very less time when someone has actually used that ability to trigger any action on anyone else. There are cards which let you help other players, but those are very few. So the chances of cooperation, and this is now I'm coming to more on the review side, the chances of those cooperations were very less in my opinion in these cards on how the game turns work. So you are mostly playing a solo game on your side, and the other player is playing solo game on his side, but both of you are trying to, in the end, trying to beat one enemy. But the level of cooperation between you two is not very high, even though the game, one of the steps in game turn order is to ask other players to activate something on your turn. But normally either they will not have a card, or they will be saving that card for doing some activation on their own turn, because they can plan better for their turn with the cards in their hand in front of them, rather than trying to think for it on your behalf. So that's my one of the caveats with the game. Now let's look at all the contents of the game before we come back and I tell you about my more opinions about my feelings of the game. Let's go over the contents that you're going to get in the base game. Of course, it's a living card game. You can always expand it, but it's always good to know that what you are going to get in the base game itself. You're going to get these four aspects, and these aspects are going to be what you will get in the future expansions as well. There might be different cards, but these four aspects are not going to change. These are going to be aggression cards are mostly related to the attacking, and they will increase the attack power for you. So the more of these that you have in your deck, you will have your character customized for more attacks. Then you have protection. If a player is playing with this kind of protection deck, then you will have things that are going to heal, that are going to defend you. So you will be in a better position to take damage from enemy rather than attack them. So a player playing this should be ideally trying to take the damage from other players as well. The leadership card is going to actually allow you to help others, help allies. And the last yellow deck is mainly for justice. And these justice cards are mostly focused on thawing or removing the threats, as well as whenever you defeat some minion, something else will happen. So they trigger abilities based on your good deeds. So that is the justice kind of effects. Again, each card is different. I'm just giving you a gist of what to expect in these cards. Whenever you are using these different aspects of the heroes, you will be always mixing them with the hero deck itself. You can mix any of these aspect decks with any of the heroes. So one day you might be playing Spider-Man with aggression, or next day you might be playing Spider-Man as a justice hero. So it will be up to you, and that adds more variety to the gameplay in itself. The heroes that come in the game are shown here. There are 5 heroes that will be available in the game box. That's Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, She-Hulk, Black Panther, and each of them come with their own obligation, as well as their own nemesis as well. Then coming to the enemies, in the base box there are 3 enemies that will come. The easiest one being the Rhino, the medium level is Claw, and the most difficult one is Ultron. Of course, with each of the enemy there are 3 levels of them. You will be always playing with any 2 of these. So for example, you might be playing with level 1 and 2, or level 2 and 3 if you want more difficulty. They come with their own schemes, which are going to be the main schemes that you have to defeat. Then within the enemy deck, of course, each enemy is going to come with their own deck, but you are also going to mix some side schemes as well. And this is where the customization of the enemies is going to come into play, that there are different side schemes that are going to become available, and you can mix any of the side scheme with any of these villains. The game may guide you that, okay, for example, for the first scenario, try Rhino with the bomb scare, for example. But in future, you can try and mix and match, and it's going to have different kind of effects. These side schemes, if they come out as a scheme and become active, then of course, until the side scheme is resolved, you will not be able to resolve the main scheme of the main villain, which is the main objective. What are the side schemes? There is Legion of Hydra, the Masters of Evil, Bomb Scare, Doomsday Chair, Under Attack, and each of these decks are going to have their own cards as well, which are going to get shuffled in the enemy deck along with the obligation that you're going to shuffle. Other than these, there are going to be always going to be some standard enemy cards which are minimal, as well as there are going to be standard minion cards, as well as some master or expert level cards as well. So if you want more difficulty, you can even shuffle these expert cards, and they are going to make your game tougher. So these are all the cards that come in the game. The only thing that I have not explained is the game does come with some standard hero cards as well. Whenever you are actually playing with any of these decks, you will be mixing in the player cards, you will be mixing some standard, which are gray cards, in your hero deck as well, because you have to play with 40 cards in your deck. So if you are playing only with a colored deck, so for example the aggression deck, these might not come up to 40 cards, so you will have to mix some standard cards to make up to 40, and most of these are going to give you some resources to use in the game. Other contents that come in the game, again, these are not cards, but at least from a content wise, there is going to be a big dial for the enemy health tracking, as well as 4 smaller dials for each of the players. Plus, the game is going to come with a lot of tokens to track the health and damages that you are going to do. Plus, some of these green specialized tokens are going to be there, because some cards might say, okay, put 3 tokens on it and you can use the ability 3 times. So you can use these kind of tokens to track those. There are going to be threat tokens, which you are going to place on your schemes of the main villain, which is going to track that how much threat they have generated, which you are going to stop. Plus, there are multiples, 5 and 3 multiples of damage, as well as these specialized tokens, multi-purpose tokens as well. And using these cards, you are going to be making, again, customized heroes as well as customized villains to fight the enemies. Now that we are back, let me tell you that in my opinion, Marvel Champions is just an okay game. And this might be surprising to you, because the amount of praise this game gets in the gaming community is very high. But in my opinion, that's not really justified. Maybe it's the Marvel IP, but the game itself is not something special. The only special thing which I've told you about is how the alter ego works. We have all seen multi-use cards. We have seen better usage of multi-use cards. And that's not really the powerful mechanism here. The alter ego is just one of the minor actions in this one, not your major. It's just on one card, which is your main player card, of course. The other cards have very less things which can alter between. Oh, if you have alter ego, then this card works differently than your main card. There are some cards in the villain deck which acts like this, but not in the hero card. Then the other problem in this one, that there are some good ideas, but they never come out that frequently. For example, the Nemesis. Each of the player are going to have a declared nemesis or superheroes. So for example, for She-Hulk, it's the She-Hulk nemesis Tatiana, I think. Yeah, Tatiana. For Spider-Man, I think it's Vulture. For Black Panther, it's Killmonger. So one of their known nemesis is going to be there, which comes with the superhero. And these nemesis cards will start outside the game. There is one card in the main villain deck, which is the treachery of the nemesis. So only when that card comes out, then it says the nemesis has appeared, and now shuffle the nemesis cards in the enemy deck, and now your nemesis is going to do something which is personal to you. Very good idea, very good concept, very thematic concept. But in my past 5 games that I have played, or 6 games that I have played, 0 times this was triggered. Why? Well, first of all, there is only one card in the whole enemy deck which triggers that. And if by chance you use that card for just the bottom ability, which is checking the stars, then it goes out. So the number of times the enemy deck gets shuffled back is very less, maybe once in the whole game maximum. before either you defeat or he wins. So it's very less. Plus, if you're playing with four players, maybe one of them will get a chance, and as long as that card was not already discarded for its other star checking boost ability itself. So the chances of getting these nemesis into the deck is very, very low. That's a missed opportunity. It was such a cool idea to have these nemesis, but in my personal experience, I didn't get to experience these nemesis. Maybe I did something wrong, but I didn't experience them. Next thing that I think was missing or was a missed opportunity is this is a Marvel based or comic based game, and there is no coherent story in it. When I think of Marvel, or forget Marvel, when I think of comics, it's the narratives, it's a grand finale, it's something that's happening, it's a campaign that's happening, and that's not available here. You will keep just playing cards and oh, I made 10 8 attack, oh, the enemy is dead, oh, we finished the game, and that's it. That was the finale you got. That's not what I expected. I wanted it to build up to something, something cool happens, and then you get to beat the main bad guy. But here, it just, oh, okay, the numbers matched, or we have enough firepower, we kill the enemy. Or, oh, okay, he generated enough threat on one turn and we lost. Again, that's a sad opportunity or missed opportunity again, that for such a thematic IP, theme was missing. And well, these things make me sad. The other thing, the core box itself. It comes with this big box, but the number of cards that come in this are very limiting. And that's a problem with the Fantasy Flight model of how they sell cards. Their booster packs, in my opinion, personally, are very expensive. I don't know why, but a small pack of card is not worth it for how much they are selling right now. The number of cards, this game is called a deck construction game. So those who do not understand the terms, the difference between a deck building and deck construction is, in a deck building game you will always have a deck of cards and you will place some of the cards in front of you, and during the course of the game you will pick up cards and add them to your deck, so you will keep building up your deck. Here you always start with a deck pre-constructed, and that's deck construction. You will build this deck based on two things: your main aspect and some hero cards, and you will mix them together, and that's how you make your deck before you start the game. That's called deck construction. This is a deck construction game, not a deck building game. So during the game you will not get opportunity to customize your deck. You have to do customization before you start the game. Problem with that customization, again I'm reviewing the base box. There is not even a single extra card that comes in the core box that you can do deck construction. So you are selling me a deck construction game where you cannot do deck construction. What is that? True. All of these aspect cards, they are barely enough that you mix them with some of the standard cards and then mix them with a hero, just enough to make one hero workable. Well, you can, there are four aspects, so you can have four active heroes, but you cannot mix and match different aspects. So I cannot mix green cards with blue cards or blue cards with yellow cards. That's not allowed. So you have to customize the green cards, but there aren't enough green cards to have a customization option. In fact, the green cards are so less that you will have to add some of the standard gray cards to make up your deck. So the deck construction element completely fails in the base box. They want you to buy an expansion pack to fix this. No, that's not acceptable. I don't want to buy two copies of the game to have more customization option. I don't want to buy expansions to fix a game. When I buy a core box, I want at least a game that's true to what it is selling me. So that is my other biggest issue with the game. Is it fun? Not really. That was my last thing. I'm just playing cards. Because of that non coherent nature, no ability to customize my decks, no ability to um have more control on the game. I'm just at the whim of, oh, whatever cards I get, okay, let's play this. What's the best option right now available to me? So, a big promise, but out of that, I have little options coming out of it. And that's why I cannot recommend Marvel Champions to anyone. Now, let's go with the comparison where people are going to ask, what about Marvel Legendary? Now, these two games should not be compared. Just because they are both Marvel and they are both card games doesn't mean they are the same game. This is a deck building game. And in my opinion, if you're looking for a more fun game, Marvel Legendary is a more fun game because at least you will get the cards in front of you. You will get to build and customize your deck during you play the game. But at least there are enough content in the game box that even without any expansion, you're going to have a fun time while playing this. Plus, there are encounters, plus, there are different villains in this, and you're going to have an enjoyable time. More heroes as well from what's compared in Marvel Champions. So this to me is a better core box and better. Majority of the X-Men team main heroes are available within this core box. So that's Marvel Legendary, a deck building game, not a deck construction game. Let's come to deck construction. Arkham Horror, which is a fantasy flight game, and this one is a deck construction game. But this core box is meant for two players. There is a new revised set which is now box like this, which is for four players. But this core box, which was the original one, which was for two players, also had the same problems, which is the mentality of Fantasy Flight, that it did not have enough cards for the customization. But at least it was half the price of this one. And Arkham Horror, in my opinion, gameplay wise, is so much better than Marvel Champions. Because this one, each campaign that you play, each mission that you play, the mission has a build up, it has a narrative, it has some thematic sense. And when you play it, even though it's played with cards, but the cards are set up like a game board, and when you're playing, it's like a board game which is going to change from game to game. So it expands the experience above a board game, even in my opinion. So this one is a far superior product. Gameplay wise, its mechanics are different as well. It has a bag for your luck element, which is not available here. People hate that bag. I hate that bag, but it's a different game. It's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to bring you bad luck. It's supposed to be horrifying. And that's what it does best. Its supplies or resources work in a different way. So comparing these two, just because they are deck construction does not mean that, just like I cannot say that all the worker placement games are same. Similarly, all the deck construction games are not the same. So Arkham Horror or Marvel Champion is not a replacement for Arkham Horror. If you're looking for a more thematic, more better game, go for Arkham Horror, the card game. I will have a full detailed review of Arkham Horror later on sometime. But anyway, for Marvel Champions, simply, I cannot recommend it to anyone. My opinion that it is highly overhyped and overrated. So if the only way that you might be enjoying this is just because you're a Marvel fan and you have too much money that you want to invest in all the booster packs, and maybe then you will have all those customization, different heroes, because heroes are the fun part of this one. Each hero works differently, and that's the fun element, the only fun element of this game. Otherwise, gameplay wise, it wasn't really that great. Sorry for that. So if I know there are so many people who will not agree with my opinion, but again, this is my opinion. And if you have similar taste as me, then maybe you're not going to enjoy this as well. And I can easily recommend these two above Marvel Champions. That's it for me. Hope this review has been useful for you. Happy gaming!